Pakistan beat Sri Lanka, but it was not enough to progress through to the Super 8. Sri Lanka entered this game with nothing to play for but pride, and to get a Super 8 win in front of their home fans. On the other hand, Pakistan had a lot more to play for, and had much more stringent requirements to meet their goal. They didn't just need to win, but they needed to win by approximately 65 runs if they batted first, or win within 13 overs if they fielded first. Otherwise, they would not progress through to the semi-finals. Both teams needed to put their ordinary Super 8 form behind them and put in a good performance. Kusal Mendis was ruled out with a hamstring injury, so Kamil Mishara came in to partner Pathum Nissanka at the top of the order. There was also a change in all-rounder, with seam bowling all-rounder Janith Liyanage coming in for spin bowling all-rounder Dushan Hemantha. For Pakistan, there were 3 changes in total, starting with a change in seamer, with Salman Mirza making way for Naseem Shah. Pakistan made the big call to drop Babar Azam. This was a decision that I agreed with though, as Babar is not really aggressive enough to achieve the outcome Pakistan needed. However, in hindsight, given the way the match panned out, maybe Babar would have shored up the innings after Pakistan lost their first wicket and ultimately helped them achieve a higher score. Saim Ayub was the other batsman to miss out. The batter coming in was Khawaja Nafay, only his second appearance in the World Cup, and Pakistan opted for an extra bowler in this game in Usman Tariq. Dushan Hemantha won the toss and bowled first, expecting G to be a factor later in the game. It was a match where Pakistan needed everything to go their way, and losing the toss put them even more up against it before the match began. Also, I'd say it's definitely easier to try and chase a score in 13 overs than it is to try and set a score that will win by 65 runs. A past score on Sri Lankan pitches has been about 160 in this tournament, so realistically Pakistan should be aiming for 225 to make it to the semi-final. Babar Azam had been brought up the order to open the batting with Farhan. Pakistan started brightly against seam with 26 runs off the first 3 overs. Sri Lanka turned to spin in the 4th over through Thikshana, and he was taken for 12 off his first over. Pakistan then gradually accelerated as the power play went on, Farhan breaking the record for most runs in a T20 World Cup along the way. Pakistan finished the power play at 9 for 64. A good start, but in my opinion they still needed to keep up that 10 runs per over rate throughout the consolidation period. Even with fielders going out, Pakistan were able to maintain that rate. Amongst it, Farhan brought up his 50. It was evident that it was a dispirited Sri Lankan team out there, and this manifested itself in some sloppy fielding mistakes. Thikshana bowled the first real tight over of the innings in the 11th over, only going for 5. He should have had the wicket of Babar Azam in that over, but Sri Lanka inexplicably didn't review the court behind. The keeper had to be more assertive there, as he knew it was out, but he couldn't convince the captain or the bowler. Liyanage couldn't keep any sort of pressure on, however, going for 18 off the next over. Babar particularly took a liking to him, and brought up his half-century at a strike rate of 200, and it looked like the wheels were falling off, as not even Thikshana could control the ball in the 13th over. He now had bowled out all of his overs. Sri Lanka reached 150 by the second drinks break. They still had 10 wickets in hand, 2 very well set batsmen, and Sri Lanka's best bowler had already finished his overs. This was a great opportunity to get a huge score. The New Zealand team watching along would have been very nervous. Next over, it became hard to watch for a Sri Lankan and New Zealand fan. Another big over from Pakistan, yielding 13, including a drop catch to finish it. The very next ball, Liyanage held a catch at the extra cover boundary, then trod on the rope, resulting in a 6. Sri Lanka did finally get their first wicket, and it was with a bit of luck. Babar chopped onto his stumps off Shamira, although Babar had marked his return to the opening spot with a scintillating 84 off 42 balls. With 176, this was also the highest partnership of the World Cup so far. And 1 wicket bought 2. Khawaja Nafay selflessly tried to maintain the run rate, but found the long-off fielder off Madhushanka. It did seem like Sri Lanka's confidence was coming back as their fielding had improved too. But Farhan was just seeing the ball too well at this point. By the 18th over, Pakistan was still travelling at 11 runs and over. Shadab selflessly sacrificed his wicket via a run-out to get Farhan on strike at the start of the 19th over. But Farhan then decided to bring up his 100 at the first ball of the 19th, and it was definitely the wrong decision to give up the strike off the first ball of the over, as Nawaz and Salman were unable to make meaningful contact with the ball. They both perished for ducks and ate up valuable balls. Pakistan were 5 for 203 at the end of the 19th over. However, another big over from Farhan could have got them to that 220 score that they targeted. A score that was their minimum expectation only a few overs ago was now looking like a more ambitious target. Then Farhan smashed it straight to cover on the first ball of the over and was out for 100. A terrific innings, but it was still not clear whether it would be enough. In a chaotic final over, Pakistan's crawled to 212 and lost 2 more wickets along the way. So Pakistan set themselves up beautifully, but couldn't quite stick the landing in that innings. At the very least, they gave themselves a realistic chance of progressing, although it would still be difficult. They needed to restrict Sri Lanka to under 147 on what looks like a good batting track. At least that was how the viewers and the broadcasters perceived the pitch. Salman, however, in his innings break interview, suggested there may not have been an easy pitch to bat on as the commentators thought, and the late batting collapse that Pakistan experienced may have been an indicator that it wasn't quite an easy pitch to start on. Early wickets was going to be important if Pakistan were to stand any chance of progressing, and there was some seam and swing out there to start with. It was going to be interesting whether Sri Lanka would go for the victory or just look to play spoils on Pakistan first. Nissanka was looking for big shots early in the innings, and that cost him his wicket from a nice slower ball from Naseem Shah. Sri Lanka were unable to find the middle of the bat in the first 2 overs, yielding just 10 runs for the loss of 1 wicket. But in the next over, Mishara was able to find the boundary with ease, with 2 fours and a 6. He was playing with the freedom and relaxed nature of a player who had nothing riding on his innings, and was just out there to play. By the 4th over, it already looked as if Pakistan's tournament hopes was slipping away, with Sri Lanka at 1 for 33, so Pakistan brought on the spin in the form of Babar. He struck straight away, bowling Mishara with an absolute jaffa. The Sri Lankans who have struggled against spin throughout the whole tournament found Babar hard to contest with. Naseem saw out the power play at the other end, of whom Sri Lanka were far more comfortable. Sri Lanka finished the power play at 2 for 49. Pakistan needed to keep Sri Lanka under 7 runs per over from this point. To make matters worse, the dew was already starting to play a part. Now that the power play was over, Pakistan began to operate with spin at both ends, with Usman Tariq coming in. In spite of this, the runs kept ticking for the Sri Lankans. Too quick for Pakistan's liking, the dew had already started to become a contributing factor. In the 9th over, Babar struck again, bowling Lanka, a wicket Pakistan desperately needed as their chances of progression were getting slim. Sri Lanka were 3 for 75 after the 9th over. Pakistan now needed to keep Sri Lanka under 6.5 runs per over if they were to progress, and Usman Tariq continued to struggle, again likely because of the dew. But the other Pakistani spinners were thriving. Babar picked up his 3rd wicket, Kamil Mishara, at the end of the 11th over, and Muhammad Nawaz picked up Pakistan's 5th wicket at the end of the 12th. Sri Lanka reached the 12th over at 5 for 101. Pakistan now needed to keep Sri Lanka below 6 and over to qualify. The only realistic chance they had of qualifying is to keep taking wickets. And they failed to take any more wickets before the drinks break, with Shanaka and Rathnayaka both finding boundaries in the 14th over. Pakistan's qualification hopes were all but over now, with Sri Lanka at 5 for 120 at the 14th over. And this was confirmed by the 16th over, as Sri Lanka started to eye victory, 30 off the next 2 overs from Usman Tariq, Rathnayaka bringing up his half-century in the process. But Naseem, Shah and Shaheen Afridi were able to rein Sri Lanka in with just 17 off the next 2 overs, losing Rathnayaka along the way. Sri Lanka now needed 46 off the last 2 overs for an unlikely victory. What happened next was the most thrilling yet anticlimactic finish. Shanaka smashed 2 sixes off the 19th over from Shadab Khan, barely keeping Sri Lanka's hopes alive with 28 required off the last over, but crucially retaining the strike. And what a start to the final over it was. 4-6-6-6. 6 runs required off the last 2 balls, but he played and missed the penultimate ball. So 6 runs were needed off the last ball. Shaheen bowls a wide Yorker. Shanaka leaves it thinking it would be a wide, but it barely snuck through for a legal delivery, and Pakistan won by 5 runs. So Pakistan win, but with a hollow feeling of missing out on the semi-finals. They'll feel a little bit hard done by, as their match with New Zealand was washed out, but the margins of the net run rate didn't work out in their favour. And Sri Lanka will be very disappointed with how their World Cup campaign ended, particularly given the promising start, but they did put on a run chase they can be proud of. Tomorrow night we turn to the finale of Group 1. I will be covering the India-West Indies match tomorrow. If you want to catch that, make sure you do subscribe. If you like the video, please do give it a like and comment your thoughts on the game below. And I'll catch you in the next one.